You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode 169. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. Hey coaches, welcome to another episode of the Life Coaching Secrets podcast. I have a special guest with us here today, one of our students in Thriving Coach Academy, Steve Bennet-Martin. He is currently in the process of getting certification, however, has already launched his own full-time coaching business where he helps entrepreneurs who wants to launch podcasts to grow their businesses. So I've invited Steve to be with us today to tell us a little bit about his path and his journey. So Steve, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
All right, so give us the lowdown of how it is that you decided that this was going to be the niche that you wanted to pursue.
Well, I fell in love with podcasting as a consumer pretty much as soon as podcasting came out. And I've been podcasting now for 4 years and always knew that I wanted to work in the podcasting industry. I just wasn't sure how, and also had a lot of limiting beliefs that I could make it work. I was even with my podcast oftentimes playing it smaller than I could. And then I discovered life coaching and enrolled in Thriving Coach Academy with you. And it helped me overcome a lot of my own personal barriers for my podcasting experience and realize that I can pay it forward and help other podcasters create their podcast using not only the life coaching skills that I'm getting through your program, but also with my 4 years of experience as a both unsuccessful and now successful podcaster.
Amazing. I remember that moment that we were having one of those business coaching calls and we were talking about niche ideas. And I remember it's like all these light bulbs went off when we realized, wait a second, like this makes sense because you've been podcasting, you can help others get into it as well. So I love that you're doing this. Now, why would an entrepreneur benefit from having a podcast? What are some of the reasons you think that podcasting could help someone leverage their business?
Podcasting for businesses is huge. It's the second most popular podcasting area right now outside of spirituality. And it's because it's so important for business people to be able to get their voice and their message out there. And podcasting is a great way to do it. And there's so many methods of monetization, both directly and indirectly, where it can definitely be a big gain for whatever business that you're working on.
Good points. I mean, obviously, we understand this. We have our own podcast as well. Yeah. And it's been really amazing just even having my own podcast, like the Life Coaching Secrets podcast. I had other previous podcasts I used to do. It's such an amazing way to have such an intimate connection to your ideal client that goes beyond how you can connect with them in other social media platforms or other marketing methods. And I love that you're doing it. I think like there's so much potential with anyone that's wanting to even like start their business or just grow wherever you're at just by having a podcast. So can you tell us a bit about what are some of the signs that someone perhaps might have a podcast inside them, but they haven't been able to figure out how to launch it? Like, what are the signs that you look for in knowing that someone could benefit from working with you?
A lot of times as I begin talking with a client about their podcast, they know right away what their podcast is about, or at least have a very clear inkling of what direction they want to take with it. And a lot of times it's the self-doubt and the beliefs that they can't do it because they don't have it in them personally. But a lot of times it's also the technological aspect. Podcasting comes with a whole lot of new software and hardware concerns that are all manageable. I was able to learn them myself, but a lot of times it just, the idea of having to learn these new things can be very overwhelming for people, for sure. And then consistency is huge with podcasting. So if your people are having trouble showing up consistently in other areas of their life, that's going to be a huge obstacle and a big red flag when launching their podcast, is because you need to show up every single week, or at least have your episode ready and to launch every single week, or however your frequency is for your listeners, because they depend on it.
Yeah, yeah. And what would you say is perhaps some of the myths or assumptions that people might have about launching a successful podcast that could get in their way?
I would say one that I experienced personally for my first few years of podcasting was that if I get too loud with my message, people are going to judge me.
Mm.
I only now, through a lot of coaching myself, have realized that people were judging me the moment that I started podcasting, and they were judging me even before I started podcasting, because people are always going to be judging me, and people are always going to be judging you, whether you're podcasting or not, whether you're getting your message out there or not. So if you're going to be doing a podcast, the best advice I would say is just to be as loud as you possibly can with it, because that's, people are going to judge you whether you're loud or quiet. So get loud.
You might as well get plowed. They're going to judge no matter what. Love it.
Exactly.
Very good. And what other kinds of myths do you commonly hear that need to be corrected?
I would say the biggest one oftentimes is that nobody is engaging with my content.
Mm.
Oftentimes people have preconceived expectations about what their podcast will look like the moment it's launched, where all of a sudden they get that golden ticket and their listeners are in the thousands and their business is booming. But it is a longer game oftentimes. And so being able to understand that you can still see numbers that show that people are engaging. It just might not be engaging with the way that you want it to be engaging, but you're watering, you're planting these seeds and you're watering them and they'll grow. My easiest sale in my business when I was doing senior living was someone who walked off the street and then 10 minutes later gave me, $10,000 check for their apartment. And it seemed quick on the outside, but it's because she had listened to my senior living podcast for weeks on end and knew exactly what she was going to be getting the moment she walked in. So it wasn't a 15-minute sales process. It was hours long. I just didn't realize it because I hadn't met her yet.
I love that. Wow. And it's just a good example of like that compounding effect of the value you put out there with your show. You don't really know the impact it could have. And I love that if you just assume, oh, no one's engaging, so therefore it's not working. There's so many people that are, at least what I'm hearing you saying, like silently engaging and receiving value. And then they show up and they suddenly want to work with you. So like keep putting yourself out there, be consistent, and know that the clients are going to come.
Yeah, I remind them, how oftentimes do you see something on Facebook or Instagram where you don't like it
Yep.
or you don't comment, but you still see it and you saw it?
Yeah.
People do that with your content all the time.
Very true. And even with this podcast, 'cause sometimes people will ask me, like, how many episodes did you make before you started enrolling clients? I think it was only maybe 15 to 20 episodes. That's it. And like for anybody, you can do this. And I mean, imagine having the support of someone like Steve to be able to help you, like put all those pieces together, have that consistency. But it doesn't take as long as I think a lot of people might assume just because of the power that lies within podcasting.
Yeah, I mean, you did awesome though with having that many episodes, because today most people who launch their podcast don't make it past 8 episodes, less
Mm.
than 50%. So making it, to 12 or 15, that could be when you start getting results. Imagine all those people who start their podcast and don't even wait to get to that point where they get to start seeing those results.
That's why they need you as their
Yeah.
podcast coach. That's why
Yeah.
they need this. So good. All right. And tell us, overall, if you had some different beliefs or philosophies you have around having a successful podcast or just expressing yourself in general, like what is your overall philosophy that you have?
My biggest one when I meet other podcasters or talk with people who are becoming podcasters, I remind them that they have to love their podcast. I've met people at podcasting conventions and podcasting networking events where they talk about their podcast like it's a heavy backpack that they're carrying on their back filled with rocks, where they're dreading, having to make their next episode, or struggling with content, or worried about their listeners or how they're being perceived out there. And it doesn't seem fun. So when they talk about their podcast, what's going to make me want to listen to their podcast that's so dark and dreary and heavy? So people, you need to really be able to love the podcast and the entire process of podcasting. There are ways that you can change your mindset or change the way you podcast to make it easier, but you have to enjoy it if you're going to be doing it.
Okay, so love the process, enjoy what you're putting out there. Good. Tell us what else do you believe to be true?
Talk like nobody is listening. That's really when I started succeeding, as I was so worried about what people might think about the content that I was creating. And as soon as I started just talking, like almost treating it like an audio diary where I would just say my deepest, darkest thoughts or secrets or fears or, whatever I was talking about, just going up and showing up authentically as myself, even when I was doing it for the business, going up knowing that I'm confident in what I have to say and not worrying that someone's going to be questioning me, it really helps you, show up talking like nobody's listening. Don't be concerned about the fact that your cousin or your uncle or your mentor or, someone might judge you for it. Just talk like no one's listening, and then you'll be surprised how people respond.
I love that. It's kind of ironic because when you talk like no one's listening, people listen and engage and build trust with you. So it's kind of funny how that works. When you talk like no one's listening, you end up sharing your voice more, you end up getting out of your own way, and you attract people that are connected to the real you. I love
Yeah.
that. Good stuff. All right. So we have big idea number one is love your podcast, love the process of making it. And then you talked about sharing and talking like nobody's listening. What would be one more big idea that you would want people to know about podcasting?
Podcasting, unlike life, is a place where quality over quantity or quantity over quality is important. Putting your stuff out there more often. I always say your best episode's your next episode,
Mm.
because as you continue publishing content and creating episodes and learning the process and putting yourself out there through the entire podcasting start to finish, you're going to get better at it. And so don't get caught up on this needs to be perfect, whether it be the episode, the editing process, the way that you do your show notes, the way that you show your up on social media. Don't worry about perfect, because I've done things and spent hours and hours editing episodes that I would think would be perfect, and it was like a tree falling in the forest. I wasn't sure like how it would go over, and they don't notice the difference between that and if I spend half that time editing or a quarter of that time. And so your perfect oftentimes is almost unattainable for you. You just have to put yourself out there with your putting as much out there, and it's going to be perfect for the right people.
It's so good. I've had times where I've recorded episodes and right before I click publish, there's a part of my brain that goes, maybe I can redo this or I could do it again. It'll be better. And it has taken me a while to get to the point where I say, no, I'm going to hit publish. If it's at least B minus, it's good enough because we are our own worst critics, I find. And what you think is a B minus to you is going to be someone else's A plus. So I love what you're saying. Totally true.
Yeah, I learned it when my patrons started getting early access to the unedited version of the episodes. And my patrons were reporting back. They're like, why are you editing it so much, almost? Because it didn't need as much editing. They're like, we like the raw stuff. We like sometimes when people say ums or uhs, or when you stumble over your words, it shows that you're human.
Yeah.
So that was feedback that I took into consideration. And I saw it in results when I started doing that on the main episodes and not worrying as much about the flaws.
Amazing. Nice. Are there any other big ideas or stories you'd want to tell us about, maybe in your own path in general, when it comes to being successful at podcasting?
I already touched on a little bit earlier with the consistency, but that's where I've seen results. They oftentimes say, you can start seeing results pretty quickly with podcasts, but they really magnifies the longer that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about the podcast, pick something that you can talk about for over 100 episodes and know that you're still going to love talking about it, because that's the goal. That's the plan.
Yeah, I like that. And now let's talk about your coaching style. So you are currently are you doing one-on-one coaching? Are you doing group coaching? What kind of structure does your business have now?
I am doing one-on-one coaching with my clients. So they get weekly coaching sessions with me, as well as access to tech support in between if they need it.
Fantastic. Okay. And how would you say your coaching style is in a few words?
Definitely am warm but firm. People oftentimes will enjoy that I can deliver some harsh truths, but I say it with a smile and a wink in a way that it doesn't feel as hard being called out sometimes on some excuses that you're giving yourself over why you might not be able to start or what your obstacle actually is. And I'm able to do that in a way that leaves them feeling like it's okay.
Nice. So Steve's not going to be letting you get off the hook when you decide to hire him. Just keep that in mind, everybody. So tell us your overall framework. You're working with your one-on-one clients. What are if you were to like summarize your coaching framework in 3 steps or so, what are the main things that you focus on with those clients?
I always begin by centering with my clients, working together to identify what their message is,
Mm,
not only what they're trying to say, but why they're saying it and who they're saying it to.
okay.
Oftentimes, a lot of that comes down to, on the technical sides, also search engine optimization, but they might give a podcast title. My first podcast was called A Lifetime of Happiness, and people were like, that sounds nice, but what is it about? So working on them, making sure that their message is centered with what they want to accomplish with their podcast. It's definitely how I always start off before. Then the second phase that I generally go into is the focusing,
Mm.
where we're creating that podcasting routine in the workflow that feels right to my clients while ensuring that they have that consistency and that engagement, and identifying and planning for any obstacles before we launch, which is the last stage and the most exciting stage for people when they get to see not only is their trailer up and out, but their actual episodes are out there and they're launched. So during that phase, we'll develop a personalized plan for continuing to grow and promote their podcast to ensure that their voice is being heard by the people who need to hear it most.
Nice. I feel like it's so rewarding as a coach when, and even just as the client, when you have something tangible, you have something real that you have to show for with your clients when they finish working with you. So it's beautiful to hear that they start out not maybe knowing what direction they're going to go. They really get centered about who they are, what message they want to share, how it aligns with their business. Then from focusing in on that to launching and celebrating that at the end, so good. Is there a time duration for how long you work with clients?
I have this program set up right now to be a 90-day program. People
90 days.
like the idea of
Wow.
having it start and finish in 90 days. It feels, exciting and maybe scary at first, but knowing that I can hold your hand through the whole process gives people that confidence where oftentimes their trailer is up in Spotify within 2 weeks of working with me.
Wow. So within 90 days, within a season,
Mhm.
you can go from not having a podcast to having a podcast, having listeners, having a schedule, having the episodes ready to go. I
And
love
having a monetization strategy to go with it.
it. Ooh, and a monetization strategy. So good. Okay, so you've worked with some clients on getting their voice out there into the world. So tell us maybe what kind of results are you seeing with some clients you've worked with?
See, my biggest success right now has been my client when I started working with them, they had 20 episodes in their backlog that they were just afraid to publish, produce, edit, and put out there. They actually had gone weeks, almost, I think, almost a couple months without releasing episodes, and they were ready to almost give up on their podcast. And through coaching with me and working on strategies that felt right to them and comfortable with them, they're not only improving their systems to be able to be releasing that backlog on a consistent basis now, but they're excited about, getting ready to record new episodes and taking all their lessons into taking it forward in the future with where it's growing. They launched their Patreon, so now they also have it monetized too.
Phenomenal. That's insane. Okay, cool. So I know that there's listeners that are probably and definitely wanting to reach out to you because they know there's a podcast inside them. They know that there's stories that they want to share. They know that they want to grow their business through podcasting. How is the best way that someone can get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me would be to email me. My email address is steve@sobersteve.com, or
Okay.
they can check out my website, which is sobersteve.com.
Beautiful. And we'll put that information in the show notes as well. And I don't know if you mentioned it really, but if like the sober Steve, I know the background behind that, but are you open to sharing like why is it sober Steve? Because there's a little bit of a story there too.
Sure, I am sober. It'd be really weird if I was sober, Steve, and not sober, but that's kind of what ignited and sparked my podcasting journey into the next level. And when I really found my stride, I knew that I wanted, most of the time I mentioned how people come to me knowing kind of already what they want their podcast about. I knew I wanted to make a podcast. I had no idea what it would be about. And so the first couple of podcasts were very much trying to find my stride. And it was when I found my sobriety and was looking for queer and sober podcasts that I can listen to and enjoy, and I wasn't finding them. I took my podcasting skills and made my own, and that's when it all kind of clicked, where that's my story that I have to share with the world, is how I, was able to find this new joy of life in sobriety, and that you can still be sober and live an awesome life and continue on and do amazing things. But it's also my gift to then be able to help other people with their own stories, tell their own stories, because I always was told to quiet down as a child. And I love now that not only do I get to be loud every week, but I get to help other people get loud too.
So good. Okay, so people can go to your website, sobersteve.com, and on your website, you'll have all kinds of things for them to check out. And I believe they can also book a consultation with you if they're curious to learn more. Is that right?
Yes, I do a free consultation, and there's always free resources there as well as ways to connect.
Amazing. Well, yes, listeners, if you are eager to get in touch with Steve, learn more about ways you can put your own podcast out in the world, grow your business, then absolutely reach out to Steve. And Steve, you are amazing. We might have hinted on it, but you've been, or maybe we talked about it before we recorded. Steve joined our coach training program about 4 months ago and has this business up and running. He has the framework down. He's working with clients. So I'm super proud of you. I'm excited on the direction you're taking your business, the success you're already having, and wishing you continued success as you keep moving forward.
Thank you so much. Yeah, with the help of Thriving Coach Academy, I know the sky's the limit for me.
Cool. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to our episode, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.